It is said that in a quiet corner of the world, far from the paths drawn on any living map, there rests a plain that breathes like a creature asleep. On certain nights, nights when the moon drifts low and slow across a silver-washed sky, the land softens into a hush so complete that even the wind forgets to stir. And in the center of this hush, rising from the earth like the last memory of a forgotten age, stands a weather-worn arch of stone. Not a temple, not a ruin, not quite a monument. Something older, something waiting. The arch stands alone, its pillars heavy with centuries of silence, its curve shaped by hands that left no name behind. Time has smoothed its once crisp edges, leaving the stone soft and pale beneath the moonlight, like bone exposed to the sky. Whispers tell us that those who pass near it feel something faint, tugging at the threads of their thoughts, as though moments begin to loosen, then drift, then return in new arrangements. Some travelers claim they walked beneath the arch and emerged into a night that felt slightly different, as if the hours had been gently folded, creased like parchment, then laid back down in another order. But such stories, people say, are spoken only in low voices, shared around dying embers on cold evenings. Tonight, we draw near to this threshold, you and I, stepping through the quiet plain where the earth glimmers with thin frost and the sky ripples with soft bands of moonlit cloud. The closer we come, the more the world seems to hold its breath. Even the insects have fallen silent. Even the dust seems reluctant to rise beneath our footsteps. Beneath the arch, faint carvings shimmer in the moonlight. They are shallow, nearly erased, their edges blurred by time and sand. And yet, when the light touches them just right, we see shapes that resemble stars sinking gently beneath waves, spirals, curved lines, fragments of constellations, symbols that feel less carved and more remembered by the stone itself. It is a gate without walls, a doorway without a destination, a question posed to the night. And this is where the story begins, not with war, nor empire, nor kings who carved their names into the world, but with a kingdom that slipped away without a sound. Long ago, before the arch crumbled and before its meaning dissolved into rumor, a quiet kingdom flourished upon the very plain where we stand. It was not a kingdom of conquest, nor a land of glittering spires. Its name was seldom spoken beyond its borders, but it breathed with its own gentle rhythm, a rhythm its people believed was aligned with the breath of the earth itself. Their lives were measured not by clocks or seasons, but by shadows. It is said they watched the length of each shadow as though reading a script written by the world. When the morning shadows stretched long and thin, they believed the day would unfold slowly, with few surprises. When the shadows at dusk flickered or fractured, they paused their steps, sensing stories the earth had not yet finished whispering. A fragment of shadow was an omen. A merging of two meant the hour was shifting in some subtle, unseen way. To them, time was not a strict ruler. It was a companion, a fluid presence that drifted like tidewater. And at the heart of their kingdom lived a ruler unlike most, not one who sought glory or monuments, but one who listened. Records describe him standing barefoot upon the stones at dawn, eyes closed, hands resting gently at his sides as he waited for the faint tremor that moved through the earth with the rising sun. He believed these tremors held the stories of seasons yet to come, the slow heartbeat of the world beneath him. His people trusted this listening, for it was said he rarely spoke, yet always understood. The kingdom's greatest treasure was not its palace nor its towers, but its library, a sprawling lantern-lit hall carved into the base of a low hill. This library held no ink, no parchment. Instead, it was filled with rows upon rows of slender scrolls made of woven reeds and delicate bark, each recording not facts or dates, but moments. A child's first breath, the final sigh of an elder, a quiet rainstorm that lasted 3 days, the instant a star fell in the northern sky. Every moment, they believed, carried a spirit, not a ghost, but a soft imprint of being. These scrolls captured those imprints, each one humming with a faint vibration when held in warm hands. Scholars claimed they could sense the emotion of these moments, joy like a rising warmth, sorrow like cool water, wonder like a soft tremor beneath the ribs. It is whispered that within these scrolls, the kingdom's history did not unfold in a straight line. Time was not linear in their records. It circled, doubled back, drifted, spiraled, like wind blowing across a field, shaping new patterns each day. Whether any of this happened in the way we imagine it is uncertain. Yet the stones remember. As we wander deeper into their world, the faint pulse of their presence becomes clearer, like the echo of footsteps long stilled but not forgotten. In the center of the plain once stood their gathering hall, a low circular structure built from pale stone blocks. Its roof had long since fallen, but the pillars that remain reveal symbols similar to those upon the lonely arch. Stars sinking into curved lines, waves curling around spirals. These carvings feel less decorative and more instructive, like maps of movement, diagrams of the way hours might bend when touched with patience. Some believe this hall was where they practiced the art that became their legacy, the art of listening to time, not seizing it, not measuring it, not commanding it, listening. It is said that at twilight, citizens gathered in quiet circles, closing their eyes as the sky dimmed. They breathed in unison, slow and deep, allowing their thoughts to soften around them like settling dust. In this unity of breath and shadow, they claimed to feel the hours stretch or contract, sometimes pausing, sometimes doubling, sometimes drifting sideways like a slow-turning leaf. There are stories, vague and worn at the edges, that describe an evening when the air trembled gently, as though the entire plain exhaled at once. Some claim that the tremor came from the earth, others insist it came from the sky. But all agree on one thing, that the shadows lengthened in a direction they had never stretched before, and in that strange, quiet moment, the kingdom slipped, not vanished, not destroyed, not swallowed, slipped as though drawn through a thin veil into another rhythm, another layer of time. One day, the kingdom stood beneath the sun. The next, only the arch remained. We stand now beneath this surviving arch, perhaps tracing the same carvings once touched by hands long returned to dust. The night deepens, and moonlight gathers in soft pools beneath the stones. Time feels pliant here, not broken, not wrong, simply softer, like fabric warmed by the palm. The plain around us is silent, but not empty. There is a sense, a faint one, like a half-remembered dream, that something lingers just beyond what we can perceive. A murmur behind the veil, a presence waiting for a moment gentle enough to return. Scholars, wanderers, mystics, they all have their theories. Some say the kingdom learned to step between moments the way others step through doorways. Some say they grew too attuned to the breath of the earth and drifted into its deeper layers. Others believe the arch is not merely a remnant, but an anchor, the one point of their world still tethered to ours. No theory brings closure, no story completes the circle. Perhaps it was never meant to. As we linger beneath the arch, the air grows softer, the silence more comfortable. The moon tilts slightly, casting long shadows that sway gently across the ground. For a heartbeat, or perhaps it is two, or perhaps time has thinned around us, the world feels suspended. A moment outside the rush of hours, a moment that belongs to no clock, a moment that breathes slowly, inviting us to breathe with it. The stone cool beneath your fingertips, the plain stretching endlessly into the quiet, the arch standing steady, patient as a sentinel of another age. In this silence, it becomes clear that not all kingdoms are meant to remain visible. Some slip into quieter realms, waiting for those who move gently enough, slowly enough, reverently enough to sense their lingering warmth. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen, and so the chapter closes with the arch before us, its shadow merging softly with the moonlit plain. Whether this threshold leads anywhere at all, no one can say, but its presence alone whispers of a truth older than memory. Not everything lost is gone. Some things simply rest in another layer of silence, waiting for the right moment to return. It begins with a trembling silver path. On nights when the wind forgets to breathe, when the world folds itself into a hush so complete that even the reeds seem to listen, the lake becomes a perfect mirror. Its surface holds the moon as if cradling a fragile lantern, glowing softly in the dark cradle of the earth. And if one waits, listening to the slow pulse of water against stone, something else begins to appear, something deeper than light, older than silence. It is said that beneath this reflection lies a city whose walls were carved before memory learned to speak. The elders of distant villages once whispered of it as the place that answered the moon, a settlement built not on soil or sand, but on devotion. A devotion so complete that the moon, stirred by these mortal gestures, laid its shimmering breath upon the water and claimed the city as its silent companion. This tale begins at the lake's edge, where the air tastes faintly of minerals and ancient rain. Here, the world feels suspended in its own dreaming. One does not walk toward the water so much as drift toward it, guided by a soft curiosity. And across the lake's surface, the pale band of moonlight quivers like a hidden doorway, waiting for the one who notices. For centuries, wanderers have stopped at this shoreline and felt the same shiver of wonder. Some claim they have seen towers flicker beneath the ripples, their pale stone rising and falling like breath. Others insist that nothing lies below but weeds and forgotten silt. Yet, every so often, during a night when the lake becomes a perfect page of silver, shapes move far beneath, faint arches, spirals, and the silhouettes of columns that do not match any known civilization. Whispers tell us that the city was once built above the water, its structures gleaming beneath the full moon as if dipped in celestial milk. The people who lived there, soft-speaking, observant, and patient, were said to be guided by priest astronomers who charted the moon's tender wandering across the sky. They sketched not maps, but contemplations, drawing the moon's path as a series of gentle arcs, tracing its positions like one traces the lines of a beloved face. Their pale stone monuments, carved from rock that shimmered faintly at dusk, were arranged not by earthly cardinal directions, but by lunar ones, the points where the moonrise softened, where its reflection stretched thin across the waters, where its eclipse cast a hush so deep that even torches bowed to its darkness. Along the terraces closest to the shore, poets once lived. Their role was not merely to write, but to listen, listening to tides, to shifting light, to the breath of the night itself. They composed verses in curved lines, mimicking the pull of currents. Their writings are said to read like ocean foam and night air, spiraling out in patterns that resembled distant waves. Each poem was a hymn, and each hymn an offering. And every month, when the moon swelled into its fullest, the entire settlement gathered by the lake. They came with woven baskets filled with reeds and strands of pale watergrass. These they shaped into delicate offerings, circles, crescents, spirals, and set gently upon the water. The pieces drifted outward like drifting fragments of a dream. Some said the moon accepted these offerings by drawing them into its reflection, pulling them softly downward until they vanished. It is in this quiet, ritual world that the chapter invites you to wander. Imagine now that you have stepped deeper into the night. The air cools, the hush grows. The lake seems to wait for you, its surface so still that even the stars hesitate to shimmer. Your feet find the shoreline's gentle curve, and the earth beneath you feels smooth, almost polished, as though countless souls have stood here before, watching, hoping. When you look across the water, the trembling path of the moon is no longer just a reflection. Its light deepens, its shimmer widens. Something moves beneath it, a faint angle of stone, then a suggestion of height. You watch as the outline of a tower forms, faint as memory, soft as a breath against your ear. Another tower appears beside it, then a pale terrace curving outward like a patient hand. These shapes remain for only a moment, no more than a sigh between waves. But in that moment, the city is not hidden. It is present, quiet, submerged, waiting. Some say the city was not drowned by disaster, but by desire, that its people, after generations of studying the moon's pull, realized their devotion was incomplete. They longed to be closer, not in distance, but in reflection. They believed the moon held a deeper truth, one that could only be understood not by gazing upward, but by gazing downward into the shimmering space where the celestial world and the earthly one touched. And so it is said, they built their final structures along the water, aligning them with tides, reflections, and moon arcs. These buildings shimmered so brightly when the moon touched them that they seemed made of moonlight itself. The boundary between tower and reflection blurred until no one could tell where stone ended and shimmer began. Over years, the city leaned more and more into its mirrored self. Some quiet legends suggest that one night, during a profound stillness, the moon's reflection deepened into a passage. The city, its walls, scripts, terraces, and rituals simply followed the light, folding itself into the depths where reflection becomes memory. No splash, no collapse, simply a surrender to the shimmer it loved. Today, when the lake is calm enough, those pale structures can be seen flickering below, not ruins but echoes, like the soft imprint of a presence that has not fully left. A soft echo arrives, though your steps trail behind, and the air feels thick with the presence of those who once stood exactly here, listening for the moment when the world's tempo softened enough to let them slip away. Perhaps they succeeded. Perhaps the kingdom's departure was not an escape, but an answering of a promise made long ago, that when time grew too heavy, too hurried, they would follow the moon's gentler rhythm into a quieter realm. You wander onward, passing through fading courtyards where pools of dusk gather like forgotten ink. Columns lean inward as if whispering secrets. Inscriptions along the stones alter subtly when viewed from different angles, like reflections shifting across water. The contradictions grow more tender now, less unsettling, more like reminders that the kingdom you walk through is both here and not here, a soft echo of itself, held in the folds of twilight. See, emotional closure, the fade into silence. As the sky darkens to deepest violet, the kingdom begins to change. Edges soften, colors fade. The stones beneath your feet feel weightless, as though drifting slightly above the earth. You pause at the remains of an ancient gate. Half of it has crumbled. The other half curves upward like the rib of a long-lost creature. Beyond it lies a stretch of open land, but even that is becoming uncertain. Shapes blur as though the landscape is dissolving into dusk. A faint shimmer rises from the ground, not bright, not sharp, but soft as breath. It moves across the ruins, touching walls, steps, and towers with the gentlest caress. And wherever it passes, the forms lose another degree of solidity. Some worlds, it seems, do not vanish all at once. They slip away softly, the way a memory loosens its hold just before sleep. You close your eyes, listening. There is no wind, no footsteps, only a sensation like the slow turning of a page, quiet, delicate, inevitable. Perhaps the kingdom did not flee. Perhaps it simply grew tired of the weight of hours, of the steady demand of clocks and seasons. Perhaps it sought refuge where time moves as softly as moonlight across still water. When you open your eyes again, the towers in the distance are little more than silhouettes. The steps behind you have grown pale. Even the walls near your hands feel less substantial, as though woven of dusk and longing. The kingdom exhales, and with that breath, the final veil descends. Stone becomes shadow. Shadow becomes mist. Mist folds gently into the waiting arms of night. In the silence that follows, you feel neither loss nor fear, only the tender awareness that you have been allowed to witness something few ever glimpse, a realm that chose gentleness over permanence and quiet over certainty. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps its truth lives only in the soft twilight between waking and sleep, where memory fades, where echoes arrive before sound, where time softens its hands and allows weary worlds to rest. You turn away as the last shapes dissolve. Ahead, the night stretches warm and deep, carrying you into its slow embrace. And behind you, somewhere just beyond the reach of the present hour, the kingdom settles into a quieter rhythm, slipping further from time's grasp, resting where the moon shines softly and where the world moves with a gentler breath. A faint glow begins to gather, not from torches or fire, but from thin slits cut into the rock high above. Through these narrow openings, strands of wind slip inward, weaving themselves through the chamber like silver threads. The faint glow is moonlight filtered through drifting clouds, spreading across the floor in soft, trembling pools, and within its reach, the outlines of shelves become visible. But these are not shelves for books. They hold hollow reeds, each cut with meticulous care. Stone flutes carved from pale rock, their surfaces etched with flowing lines like the patterns rivers leave when they dry. Ceramic vessels decorated with spirals, crescents, and delicate feathered marks. Every piece is crafted to catch the breath of the world, to receive the winds that wander across deserts, over oceans, through quiet villages and abandoned ruins. This library, legends say, was not built for human hands alone. It was constructed to hold the whispers of the earth. The people who shaped it belonged to a quiet culture, now scattered into obscurity. They believed that every sigh of wind carried a trace of someone's life. A laugh lifted from a distant courtyard, a cry carried from a forgotten battlefield, the whispered promise of lovers parting beneath starlight, the final breath of someone fading into dusk. Each gust, they said, bore fragments of countless stories, and the library was created to preserve them not through written words, but through captured voices of air. Their scholars were listeners rather than writers. They spent their days seated in patient stillness, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, waiting for the winds to shift. When a breeze threaded itself through a reed or crossed the mouth of a vessel, they listened for what it carried: a joy, a memory, a wonder, a grief. They believed the winds chose their vessels with intention, guiding certain stories to certain instruments. You walk deeper into the chamber now, and the air grows cooler. The shelves extend into the darkness like rows of sleeping guardians. Some reeds hum faintly as you pass them, releasing thin strands of forgotten emotion. A few flutes whistle with the softest tone, a trembling note that barely exists. A ceramic jar near your side gives a sigh so fragile that it seems to dissolve before reaching your ear. Each sound is brief, incomplete, as though holding only one breath from a much larger life. Somewhere deeper within, a corridor branches away. You follow it, guided by a subtle shift in the air. The walls narrow, and the wind becomes shy, brushing lightly against the stone as if uncertain of your presence. You find another chamber, smaller, darker, where the moonlight barely touches. Here, the shelves hold fewer vessels, each crafted with a precision that borders on reverence. These, you realize, are the vessels of unspoken memories. Legend tells that certain winds carried stories too heavy for ordinary reeds, memories born of profound sorrow or unexpressed longing, or the quiet wounds of the heart that have no words. These stories were said to be carried by the softest winds, the ones that drift gently at dusk or linger in the air moments before sunrise. They whispered not loudly, but with a weight that could not be ignored. The scholars believed such memories were sacred. They forged special vessels for them, ceramic pieces with walls so delicate they seemed thinner than eggshell, stone flutes hollowed with such care that a single misaligned breath could fracture them, reeds carved from plants that grew in the shadow of the mountain itself. These vessels were meant to hold the softest, heaviest winds, yet many of them contain no sound at all. You lift one gently, your hands cradling it like a fragile moon. It is cool, smooth, and utterly silent. Not even the faintest hum stirs within. You place your ear near its opening, expecting a whisper, a sigh, a trace of some distant life. But there is nothing, only stillness, a stillness so deep it feels intentional. You set it down softly. Another vessel stands beside it, a flute of pale stone, its grooves etched with a pattern resembling falling petals. You test it with a careful breath. It responds with silence, not resistance, not hollowness, a silence that feels full, as though guarding something not meant to be released, stories too heavy or too sacred. Some scholars of old believed that these vessels did not hold memories for human ears. They believed the mountain itself listened, that the wind brought such memories back to the stone from which all things rise and to which all things return. In this way, The earth became a keeper of stories too profound for the living. You wander further. The corridor curves, its walls now smooth and cool, shaped by centuries of passing breezes. With every step, the wind grows softer, as though withdrawing deeper into its own dreaming. Some gusts hesitate near the openings of vessels, then slip past without entering. Others rest for a moment on the stone, stirring the dust into faint spirals. The air feels thoughtful, almost cautious. In this quiet, you become aware of your own breath, its rhythm, its shape, its presence. It mingles with the cool air of the library in soft waves. For a moment, you wonder if your breath too will someday drift into the hollow of a waiting vessel, carrying with it a fragment of your life. You imagine the possibility, a future wanderer lifting a reed or flute, hearing the echo of your breath, feeling your memory brush their ear like a distant wind. Perhaps that is what these silent vessels hold, not only ancient memories, but the invitation for new ones to arrive. You move deeper, and the path leads you to the innermost chamber, the heart of the library. Here, the air barely moves. It lingers in the center of the room like a held note, waiting. Moonlight enters only through a single crack in the stone above, falling in a thin beam that sways with the shifting night. The shelves encircle the chamber like a ring of guardians, and upon them rest the oldest vessels, some chipped, some faded, each one carrying a story locked in time. None of them make a sound. You stand quietly, letting the stillness settle around you like a soft cloak. The silence is not empty. It is dense, layered with the weight of unspoken lives. And in this silence, a thought drifts to you gently. Some memories do not wish to be understood. They wish only to be held. Perhaps this is why the library was carved into a mountain, a place ancient and patient enough to cradle the world's quietest truths. Perhaps the silent vessels guard memories meant not for hearing, but for feeling. Memories that reveal themselves not as sounds, but as shifts in breath, or tremors in the air, or a faint stirring of the heart. You close your eyes. A soft breeze brushes past you, the gentlest touch yet. It does not hum, it does not sigh. It simply lingers, then drifts onward down the corridor, as if guiding you toward the exit. You follow. The return path feels different now, as though the winds have chosen to step aside and let you pass. The reeds no longer murmur, the flutes no longer quiver. The vessels hold their silence with renewed stillness. Everything seems to be waiting, respectfully, thoughtfully, for you to leave the stories in peace. When you reach the entrance once more, the world opens before you. The night air is cool, scattered with faint stars. The mountain exhales its long, quiet breath across your face, and in that breath lies everything you have heard and everything you have not. The doorway behind you grows dim, folding back into the stone. The winds settle, the silence deepens, and somewhere inside the mountain, within those hollow reeds and fragile vessels, memories shift softly, unspoken, unbroken, untouched. Perhaps they were never meant to be heard, only carried, only held, only left in the patient care of the winds. It begins at dusk, at that fragile moment when the world loosens its grip on day and gently turns itself toward the night. The last of the sun's warmth lies quiet upon a lonely ridge, where a traveler stands in stillness. No wind disturbs the silence, no voices stir the air. Only the soft hush of approaching darkness settles around them like a slow falling veil. It is said that on certain nights, nights when the sky breathes without trembling. The horizon reveals a secret that belongs to no map, no kingdom, and no single age of the world. A secret that drifts on starlight like a pilgrim walking paths of sky. As the traveler gazes outward, the first stars shimmer into view. They glimmer faintly at first, trembling in the deepening blue, then grow brighter as the dusk softens. Moments pass, quiet and unhurried. The ridge grows cooler, shadows lengthen, and then, far beyond the silent plain, a shape begins to gather from the edge of darkness. At first it resembles a mirage, a wavering outline as thin as breath, but slowly, gently, a silhouette takes form. A roofline, a rising arch, columns that stand like guardians, a structure that seems both distant and near, faint and impossibly present. It hovers just above the horizon as if refusing to fully commit to the world. Some say only those who are not searching may see it. Others believe it comes to those who carry questions heavy enough to reshape their dreams. This is the temple that wandered with the stars. It has been whispered about across centuries, across deserts, mountains, and shorelines. Caravans once looked for its shape at nightfall. Sailors charted its rumored location on drifting maps. Yet no one ever agreed on where it truly stood, for its placement changed like a slow-moving constellation, appearing where the heavens aligned with an ancient and secret rhythm. The traveler takes a cautious step forward, though the distance never seems to lessen or grow. The temple waits in patient silence. There is no path leading to it, yet somehow the ground beneath the traveler's feet feels guided, as though shaped by unseen hands. The air grows cool, carrying the faint scent of stone long washed by starlight. Some believe the temple was first raised by a people who listened to the heavens more closely than they did the earth. They watched the wanderings of the planets, the circling of constellations, the slow turning of seasons marked not by crops or storms, but by the shifting of celestial breath. Their priests were astronomers, poets, dreamers, souls who believed that the fate of the world was rewritten every night in the quiet arcs traced above them. The temple was their anchor, and yet it would not remain still. You step closer now, or perhaps the temple steps nearer to you. The boundary between movement and stillness blurs with every breath. The silhouette becomes clearer, revealing columns carved from pale moon-silvered stone. Their surfaces shimmer with symbols that resemble falling stars, swirling nebulae, and spiral paths that trace ancient celestial roots. The roof curves gently like the arc of a horizon line, and light pools along its edges in soft, trembling flashes. The entrance lies open before you, though no door or threshold marks it, just a shadowed passage framed by two immense stones. Their faces are etched with constellations, but they seem to shift each time you blink, rearranging themselves in ways too subtle to track. You step inside. The temple's interior feels impossibly spacious, like stepping into the calm of a night sky itself. The ground beneath your feet is cool, worn smooth by countless generations. Sculpted pillars rise around you, each one carved with patterns that resemble star charts, but none remain fixed. As you move, their illuminations brighten or dim, adjusting to the rhythm of your steps. High above, a stone ceiling rotates with a grace so slow it takes a moment to notice. It is carved in swirling layers, resembling a map of the heavens. Each rotation is silent, as if the stone itself is exhaling as it moves. The light of distant stars filters through narrow slits in the dome, scattering upon the stone patterns beneath you like fragments of drifting silver. Long ago, this hall was said to be the temple's heart. Priest astronomers once gathered beneath this rotating ceiling. They sat in deep meditation, listening to the soft clicks and sighs of the stone as it turned. At each season shift, the carvings above changed shape, mirroring the sky's shifting blueprint. They believed it was not the ceiling that moved freely, but the heavens themselves leaning down, guiding each pattern into place. Some scrolls claimed the temple drifted across generations, not walking, not gliding, but appearing only where the stars willed it. Others suggested the temple did not move at all. Instead, it was the world that spun beneath it, aligning or misaligning so that only in rare moments did the temple's true shape become visible. You wander deeper. The air grows softer. Columns rise around you like ancient trees of stone. Their shadows ripple in a slow dance with the shifting starlight. You pass chambers with walls curved like crescents, each one filled with pale, smooth altars where offerings of carved crystal once lay. The crystals were shaped to mirror stars, not in brilliance, but in quiet geometry. They reflected the celestial patterns above, absorbing and releasing starlight in slow breaths. In one chamber, you find a stone basin filled with shimmering dust. It glows faintly, swirling as though touched by an invisible wind. Legends say this dust was gathered from meteor fragments, memory-bearing grains that fell from the night sky during rare alignments. The priests believed each particle held the echo of a distant world, a whisper from a place beyond the reach of mortal eyes. In another chamber, soft light spills through an aperture in the ceiling, illuminating a circular floor marked with intricate lines. It resembles a compass, though no north or south is marked. Instead, each line corresponds to a star path, the roots of celestial wanderers traced across centuries. It is said the priests stood here at night, letting starlight fall upon their faces, waiting for the temple to shift again. Some believe the temple's movement kept cosmic balance, that if it remained in one place too long, the stars would falter in their courses. Seasons would lose their rhythm. The night sky would dim in confusion. The temple, they whispered, was a mediator between earth and heaven, a structure neither entirely stone nor entirely celestial. A traveler between realms. You move along its halls, and the atmosphere seems to adjust. The air brightens as you enter one corridor, then darkens in another, as though the temple is thinking, breathing, remembering. At times the walls seem closer together, shadows deepening like pools of ink. At others they open into vast moonlit spaces where carved figures stand etched into the stone, their faces turned upward in eternal stargazing. The deeper you explore, the more the boundary between movement and stillness dissolves. A contradiction lingers like a half-remembered dream. Is the temple truly wandering, or are the stars themselves adjusting their course around it? Some ancient texts claim the temple was the only fixed point in the universe. Everything else drifted in relation to it. Others insisted the temple was a celestial vessel, drifting silently across time, guided by constellations that no longer exist in the visible sky. You pause in a final chamber, the largest of them all. The ceiling here is open to the night, shaped in a perfect circle through which the stars look down like watchful guardians. A platform of pale stone rises at the center, bearing a single carving, a spiral that begins impossibly small, then expands outward into a wide curve. The spiral is so precise it seems alive, as if it might continue unfolding long after your gaze leaves it. The floor beneath you vibrates faintly, like a low hum, a heartbeat, a pulse. You cannot tell if it comes from the stone or from the sky above. Then, slowly, something shifts. Not sound, not movement, a feeling, like a breath drawn inward by the temple itself. The starlight softens, the walls dim, the air grows warmer as though dawn approaches. You step back through the corridors, watching as the shimmering symbols grow faint. The rotating ceiling slows until it becomes still. The carved constellations fade into the stone. By the time you reach the entrance, the horizon has begun to pale with an early morning light. You step outside. Behind you, the temple seems to shimmer, not vanishing abruptly, but dissolving into the soft glow of the sky. Its edges blur, its pillars gently fade, as though no longer certain whether they belong to this world. Within moments, it becomes a faint outline, then a whisper, then nothing. Only starlight remains, lingering in your memory like a dream too delicate to hold. Perhaps the temple never moved at all. Perhaps the stars themselves were rearranging, seeking balance in the quiet breath between night and day. Or perhaps some places are meant only to be seen when the skies allow it, when the world is silent enough to listen. As the first light of dawn washes over the ridge, you feel a gentle warmth rise in your chest. The memory of the wandering temple glows there, soft and faint, like a distant star still waiting to be named. And perhaps it was never meant to be found awake for long. It is said that along a forgotten coastline, where the wind moves with the gentlest breath, and the moon hangs low like a silver lantern, there stands a single arch of stone rising from the quiet surf. It lifts itself from the tide as though the earth once exhaled it upward from the deep. And if you stand beside it in the blue hush of night, you may feel, rather than hear, the faintest tremble of sound within its pillars. Whispers tell us they are the remnants of songs, melodies from a kingdom that vanished long before the first chronicles learned to shape its name. Tonight, in this soft hour between waking and rest, let us drift toward that ancient gate. Let us walk across the pale sand, where the waves leave long threads of foam that curl like forgotten runes. Let us listen for the voices that sleep beneath the water's slow pulse. For some believe that beyond this arch, beyond the reach of light and memory, lies the breath of a civilization swallowed by the sea, yet not entirely gone. A kingdom whose stories rise and fall with the tide, like a lullaby the ocean refuses to forget. The invitation of the moonlit shore. Imagine the scene, a shore washed in moonlight so calm it feels as though time itself has paused to rest. The sand holds no footprints, the air holds no haste, only the murmur of distant waves drifting in and out, like the quiet rhythm of an ancient choir. At the water's edge, the stone arch stands alone. Its surface is smooth in places, eroded in others, as though sculpted by centuries of tide and salt. Look closely, and you may notice faint carvings along its inner curve, spirals, shells, delicate lines that resemble the paths of shifting currents. No one today can read these symbols, yet they feel familiar, like echoes of thoughts you once dreamed. It is here our journey begins, at a threshold once believed to divide the world of land from the realm of remembrance. A place where, when the tide rose highest, the pillars hummed with soft vibrations. Some called it the ocean's breath, some called it the gate of echoes, and some in uncertain whispers, called it the last relic of a kingdom that slipped beneath the waves long before the world learned to listen. The kingdom at the water's edge. Long ago, so long that even the most patient historians can offer only fragments, there existed a coastal kingdom that charted its life by the ocean's rhythm. Its people were neither conquerors nor wanderers. They were listeners. Their scholars, it is said, believed every tide carried memories from distant shores and deeper realms. They charted the sea's breath as others chart the stars. They built coral-carved chambers along the cliffs where the waves struck hollow notes against the stone. And in these chambers, at twilight, they listened, not for warnings, not for prophecy, but for understanding, the kind that comes only when one is quiet enough to hear what the world has kept hidden. The city was shaped by the ocean's mood. Homes made of pale limestone curved gently like shells. Markets unfolded only when the tide pulled back, revealing flat terraces of sand that glimmered faintly with crushed pearl dust. Lanterns of glass, blown from sand heated to a warm amber, were hung from arches that framed the horizon. And every night, as the sky browned into dusk, the people gathered along the shore to perform their most sacred ritual, the listening, rituals in the hour of stillness. It is said the listening took place only when the water lay so still that it mirrored the heavens in perfect silence, when the moon's reflection lay unbroken upon the surface like a second world hanging just beneath the waves. During this hour, the scholars would stand near the water's edge, each holding a vessel carved from coral or shaped from clay infused with powdered shell. These vessels were not meant to contain water. They were crafted to gather sound, tiny hollows and chambers designed to resonate with the softest murmurs of the tide. Some vessels sang with high, trembling notes. Others exhaled low, warm tones that felt more like breath than music, and a rare few produced no sound at all. These silent vessels were considered sacred, for they were believed to hold memories too heavy for the world above. Children watched the ritual with wide, quiet eyes. Elders watched with a tenderness that came from knowing the sea had taken their own elders too. No one feared the water. They simply understood it, the way one understands a friend who holds both secrets and sorrow. As the scholars lifted their vessels toward the horizon, the moon's light caught the polished clay and coral, sending faint reflections across the sand. Each vessel hummed or trembled or remained still, and the people listened, not with their ears, but with the stillness of their hearts, hoping to catch a fragment of the ocean's distant memory. The chamber beneath the shifting sands, yet beyond the quiet rituals, beyond the arch that touches the tide, there lies a deeper mystery, one that reveals itself only when the sands have shifted enough to expose what rests below. Beneath the shoreline, hidden for generations, is a chamber carved directly into the rock. Its entrance, half smothered by sand, is narrow and low, as though built for those who approached on bent knees. Some believe the chamber was crafted in the kingdom's final days, when the people sensed the sea turning restless. Others say it was older than the kingdom itself, a space left behind by an even more ancient world. Within the chamber, soft echoes linger, though no wind flows there. The walls are lined with fossil shellwork, spirals etched into stone, and the delicate tracings of currents preserved like sacred inscriptions. Some spirals are no larger than a fingertip. Others stretch across entire walls, their curves branching like quiet rivers of memory. and on the floor, at its center, rests a circular basin carved with such care that its edges feel softer than stone should permit. The basin holds no water. Instead, it holds stillness, a stillness so profound it seems as though sound itself pauses when one steps near. Scholars who once studied this chamber wrote of an uncanny sensation, the feeling that the silence within the basin was not empty, but full of something waiting, breath held, suspended between worlds, a silence that felt alive. And so the chamber remained hidden, visited only by those who sought to understand the deeper pulse of the ocean. Their journals speak not of answers, but of impressions, images glimpsed in the quiet, a lost throne hall carved from coral, a fleet of boats drifting without sails, a kingdom bathed in twilight, neither rising nor sinking, but paused in a breath the sea had never released. The tide that carries memory. As the listener wanders back toward the shore, the tide begins to rise. The waves approach with a slow, moonlit patience. Each step along the sand softens into a hush. The stone arch stands firm, yet something about it feels different now. Older, heavier, more aware. The water climbs the pillars gently, as though greeting an old friend. And once the tide reaches a certain height, the faint murmur begins. It is not a song, not truly. It is more like the echo of something long ago sung, a vibration woven from memory, drifting through stone softened by ages of salt. Some hear voices in it, gentle, wordless, full of a longing that feels ancient and familiar at once. Others hear the sound of wind passing through distant corridors, and some hear nothing at all, yet feel a quiet tug behind their ribs, as though the ocean is asking them to remember something they never lived. It is said the sea holds countless stories, some whispered gently at the surface, others buried so deep they sleep in silence, guarded by currents that have no name. Tonight, perhaps, we stand at the edge of one such story, not meant to be solved, not meant to be claimed, only felt, the fade into silence. As the tide swallows half the arch, the whispers soften, the night deepens. Moonlight trembles on the surface of the water like a final delicate breath, and here, where the voices fade into the deep, the listener is left with a quiet longing, a sense that beyond the visible world lies another, shaped not by stone or script, but by memory itself. Perhaps the kingdom beneath the waves was real, perhaps its rituals shaped the tides for centuries, or perhaps time, in its wandering, folded imagination and truth together like two currents meeting in the dark. In the end, the ocean gate stands silent once more. The waves retreat. The night grows still. Only the soft sigh of the sea remains, carrying echoes you may hear again in dreams. For some voices, it is said, only awaken when we are ready to listen, and some choose to sleep in the deep, where silence keeps its most sacred memories. It is said that in a quiet valley, where the grasses grow pale as moonlit ash and the winds carry the gentlest sighs of distant seasons, there lies a road that no map now remembers, a narrow ribbon of earth winding through long fields of faded gold, curving as though shaped by an ancient hand that once traced the path between two worlds. And along this abandoned road, rising from the soil like slender memories half awakened, stand lanterns, dozens of them, hundreds perhaps if one walks long enough. Their frames, once carved with sacred precision, now sway softly in the nocturnal breeze. Rust clings to their edges, dust sleeps upon their crowns, But even in their silence, they stand like watchful sentinels, guardians of a path whose footsteps have long since vanished. Tonight, in this quiet hour, let us walk this forgotten road, gently, slowly, as though our arrival were expected by the valley itself. The invitation, a road held in the breath of night. Imagine stepping onto the road just as twilight surrenders to the coming night. A pale mist curls low to the ground, drifting through the grass in thin silver ribbons. The lanterns glow faintly in this dimness, not with light, but with presence. Metal frames shaped like inverted teardrops, glass panes clouded by centuries of soot, and hanging from each lantern's peak, a small ring carved with patterns almost too faint to see. When the wind stirs, the lanterns answer, not with sound, but with movement, as if nodding in acknowledgement to something ancient passing through the valley. Travelers once believed that this road marked the border between the living world and the land of drifting echoes, a threshold where guidance was necessary, even for those who did not know they were lost. Some tales say the lanterns once lit themselves when a weary traveler approached. Others whisper that the light was not flame at all, but the soft glow of something remembering its way home. The path of constellations. As we walk deeper into the valley, the lanterns stretch outward like a procession of silent stars. Each lantern bears engravings curled around its frame, tiny markings like constellations half forgotten, lines that resemble the curve of migrating birds, spirals that mimic old storm cycles charted by ancient astronomers, sharp little triangles like mountains seen from afar, and at the top of each lantern, a single mark shaped like a four-pointed star. Some call it the midnight seal. Others say it is the symbol of passage, the sign that the lantern once carried a soul's final light. The road beneath your feet feels soft, almost padded, as though the earth itself has learned to swallow sound out of respect. The night is serene, not silent, but gently filled with a small rustling of grasses brushing one another in the wind, a chorus of whispers with no distinct voice, as though nature speaks here in unison, careful not to disturb whatever memories lie beneath the soil. It is in places like this that history lingers like a low tide, revealing what the daylight refuses to see. The Brotherhood of the Lantern Keepers. Few now speak of the brotherhood who once tended these lanterns. Their name has faded into the folds of legend, carried only by those who study the hidden corners of forgotten epochs. But remnants of their rituals still sleep within the valley. Whispers tell us that these keepers travel the length of the road at dusk, carrying bowls of oil infused with crushed herbs and rare resins. Their robes, it is said, were woven with threads dyed in muted blues and dusty grays, the colors of twilight. Their footsteps were soft, almost ceremonial, as though each movement honored the boundary between what is seen and what remains unseen. But the keepers did not light the lanterns, not unless the road itself called for it. Their task was not to ignite flame, but to prepare for its arrival, cleaning the glass, tending the wicks, ensuring that each lantern could awaken if the valley willed it. Some believe they were guiding souls through their final thresholds. Others say they helped lost travelers find the path back to their own stories. And a few ancient scrolls mention that the lanterns glowed brightest, not for the dying, but for those who felt adrift in life, those caught between choices, between loves, between identities. For every soul, it seems, passes through a twilight of its own. But one night, long ago, when the kingdom surrounding this valley was swallowed by famine, war, or perhaps some more silent calamity, the lanterns fell dark, one by one, like stars extinguished at dawn, and the keepers simply faded from memory. Walking the road of extinguished light, as we follow the road further, the night deepens, the grass grows taller, brushing your hands like soft threads of silk. The mist glows faintly in the moonlight, creating halos around the lanterns that flicker without flame. Every few steps reveals a lantern whose frame has crumbled, swallowed by rust. Others lean sideways as though tired of centuries of vigilance, and yet some remain impossibly intact, their engravings sharp, their wicks perfectly preserved, as though held in a breathless moment untouched by time. It is here, by one of these untouched lanterns, that the first hint of mystery appears. Within its glass, beneath a thin scatter of soot, you see something faint, a glimmer, soft and trembling, not a spark, not a reflection, but a memory of light clinging to the soot itself. The keepers believed soot was sacred, that it held the final breath of every flame that had ever lived, and that in this breath lay a soul's imprint, a last gentle echo. To see the soot glimmer is to sense that the lantern remembers, and perhaps somewhere in the valley something still watches over this road. Some truths, it is said, sleep lightly, symbols woven in dust and shadow. Further along the road, the engravings on the lanterns deepen. Spirals unfurl across the frames. Constellations cluster more tightly. Shapes appear that resemble open eyes, crescent moons, fluttering wings. Some symbols repeat from lantern to lantern, as though telling a story in fragments. One lantern shows a bird rising. The next shows a bird in flight. The third shows the same bird descending. The fourth shows only an empty sky. Another sequence depicts a storm gathering on the horizon, then breaking, then clearing into stillness. Some believe these patterns once taught travelers how to navigate their inner storms. Others say they mark the journey of a soul beyond its final horizon, and yet the story remains incomplete, an echo without a source, the final bend of the forgotten road. At last, we come to the road's final curve, a gentle bend that disappears into a curtain of mist so thick it seems woven from moonlight. The lanterns here stand closer together, almost shoulder to shoulder, as though reluctant to let the path end. Their frames are unbroken, their engravings sharp as newly carved runes, and within many of them the same faint glimmer dances on the soot, a soft remembrance, a quiet yearning, a promise. Some say that beyond the bend the road continues, not in this world, but in another realm shaped by memory, longing, and dream. A place where lanterns still burn with quiet, guiding fire. A place where the keepers still walk in twilight. A place where every lost soul finds its way, drawn by a light that never fades. Others believe the bend leads nowhere, that it is simply a boundary where the world grows thin, where the veil between what is known and what is possible becomes gentle, permeable, forgiving. Perhaps both are true. The fade into silence. Standing here at the threshold of the final bend, you feel a weight and a softness all at once. The weight of forgotten guidance, those lights that once flickered for travelers long gone, and the softness of possibility, of the idea that some paths remain illuminated even when their lanterns have fallen dark. The valley is still now. The lanterns sway only slightly. The mist thickens, folding the road into a dream-like glow. If you listen closely, you might hear a faint breath, like a wick exhaling in memory of its flame. No answers come, no revelations, only a sense that something ancient watches with gentle patience. Perhaps the keepers never left. Perhaps the lanterns are not dead but dormant. Perhaps the road waits for those who need it. Some voices, it is said, only echo when we are ready to listen, and some paths, though forgotten, remain lit in realms we have not yet learned to see. And so the chapter closes in quiet wonder, the valley dim, the lanterns soft, the road open to whatever dream your heart chooses to follow. It is said that far beyond the roads we know, past the deserts where even the wind grows tired, there lies a plateau so silent that footsteps refuse to echo. Travelers who wander there describe an odd sensation, as though their breath slows without their bidding, and the world around them softens into a single lingering exhale. Beneath the pale sweep of the moon, the land opens itself to reveal a garden, no place of flowers, but a sanctuary carved from stone itself. Tonight, we begin there. Imagine a great field of stones arranged in perfect concentric circles, each one engraved with patterns resembling ripples on an ancient lake. Under the settling moonlight, the carvings gleam with a quiet, otherworldly luster, as if remembering the touch of hands long vanished. Some believe that these stones inhale and exhale in rhythm with the sky, swelling with silver light, and releasing it again like sighs of an ageless earth. This is the stone garden, where time is said to have learned for a moment how to sleep. The plateau around it stretches into soft darkness, held aloft by the whisper of distant mountains. A thin river of mist drifts across the circles, catching the moon's glow as though the night is pouring itself gently over these ancient sculptures. The air is cool, fragrant with dust and quiet secrets. Nothing stirs. Not even the smallest creature breaks the sacred hush. Those who arrive at this place speak of feeling watched, not with hostility, but with a patient curiosity, like the garden itself is waiting to see what piece of the rushing world you have brought with you, and whether you intend to set it down. Some legends claim that a single name lies buried beneath the first ring, a name so old and so quiet that saying it aloud causes the night to tremble. Others whisper that each circle marks a breath of the earth itself, frozen in stone so that mortals might learn the rhythm of stillness. And so, beneath the moon's gentle hand, we step slowly into the outer ring, crossing the threshold of a civilization that once devoted its entire existence not to conquest or wealth, but to silence. Whispers tell us that this garden was shaped by a people who believed that time was not a river, but a restless creature, forever pacing, forever hungry, always pulling the world forward, whether it was ready or not. They devoted their lives to comforting this creature, coaxing it into moments of rest so the world could breathe between the passing of years. In forgotten corners of the earth, fragments of their scrolls have been found, thin, brittle leaves etched with drawings of spirals, crescents, and small symbols resembling half-closed eyes. Some believe these were meditative diagrams, guides for easing the mind into states where the heartbeat aligns with celestial rhythms. Others insist they are remnants of something deeper, instructions for communicating with time itself. But in the stone garden, such scrolls seem unnecessary. The stones speak on their own if one is patient enough to listen. As we move inward, each ring shifts subtly in design. The outermost stones hold wide, gentle ripples, patterns that seem to coax the mind into slowing. The next ring holds tighter spirals, carved with a precision that defies the erosion of centuries. The third ring contains symbols so intricate that moonlight cannot settle between their lines. Instead, it glides across them like water over glass. Beneath the silence, faint chimes drift through the air, soft, crystalline tones that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere. Perhaps they are remnants of the crystal instruments said to have hung from tall wooden frames, ringing with every change in temperature. Their sound once guided the people's meditations, aligning breath with the stars. Legend tells of dawn ceremonies where the entire civilization gathered in the center of the garden. They sat among the stones, closing their eyes as the first hint of morning brushed their faces. The soft ringing of crystal chimes marked the passing of each moment, not like seconds ticking away, but like petals unfolding in slow, sacred ritual. It is said that time grew weary under their attention, that its restless pacing faltered, that within the garden the creature of time curled softly upon itself and drifted into a shallow, peaceful slumber. And yet, as we continue moving inward, the stillness reveals subtle contradictions. Shadows fall in unexpected directions as though unsure which way the moon truly sits. The carvings themselves seem to shift when one's gaze lingers. Lines that once curved inward now appear to bend outward. Shapes that once rose seem to sink. The stones are not alive, and yet they behave as though they remember motion. Perhaps this is the signature of the civilization that shaped them, an understanding of time so profound that they could coax illusions of movement from unmoving stone, or trick the mind into perceiving moments differently than the body does. Some scholars, cautious and skeptical, argue that these shifting patterns are simply clever masonry paired with moonlight angles, but those who sit long enough within the rings claim to feel something else, something like the slow softening of the world around them, the gentle stretching of what a single moment might contain. A traveler once wrote, "I felt the years loosen their grip, my heartbeat slowed, my thoughts drifted like dust in a temple beam. For the first time, I understood why they built this place, not to stop time, but to soothe it. And deeper still, past the fourth and fifth rings, lies the innermost circle." Not much is said about this place. The few who have reached it describe carvings so fine they resemble the faint lines on the surface of still water moments before a pebble lands. They say the air there feels dense, as though each breath carries the weight of centuries pressing close. Some believe this inner circle was the heart of the ritual, the point where the passage of time slowed, not for the world, but for the individual. A weary traveler could sit there and feel the rush of their days quiet to a soft murmur. Wounds of the heart, long gnawing, would loosen their teeth. Grief would lift like morning mist. Even memories, once sharp and restless, would find a restful distance. Others insist the inner circle is a warning, that its purpose was not comfort, but containment, that the civilization discovered something too powerful to share and built the circles around it like walls, ripples meant not to soothe time, but to keep some truth from escaping into the world. Yet the stones refuse to confirm either tale. They simply wait, patient and ancient, wearing the silence of those who shaped them. When we finally reach the center of the stone garden, there is no altar, no throne, no artifact waiting to be claimed. Only a single smooth stone rests there, worn by ages of quiet presence. It is neither grand nor mysterious in its appearance. It feels more like a bench for weary minds, a place where the rush of life is gently set aside. Perhaps this simplicity is the final lesson. The air grows softer here, thick with the scent of dust and dusk. The mist hangs lower, folding itself around the rings as though protecting a sleeping child. Even the moonlight dims, becoming less insistent, more like a whispered blessing. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. And in this place, beneath the moon and the murmuring stones, a thought drifts like a feather through the mind. That time cannot be stopped, cannot be held in any hand, cannot be conquered by even the most patient civilization. It moves as it must. It carries us as it will. But here, in this sacred place of spirals and silence, it can be persuaded, just for a moment, to rest its weary feet. Perhaps that is all these people ever sought, a pause, a breath, a single moment where the creature of time closed its eyes and listened to the quiet world it shaped. As the night deepens and the mist thickens, the garden blurs into a soft dreamscape. The stones fade, the ripples soften, the moon drifts behind a curtain of cloud, and we are left with the lingering truth. Time sleeps nowhere forever, but in certain hidden corners of the earth, beneath the silence, where memory fades and moonlight settles gently, it can be convinced to sleep for just a heartbeat longer, like a traveler resting beneath the stars. It is said that beneath a range of forgotten mountains, where the stone rises like the ribs of a sleeping titan, there opens a narrow, breath-cold fissure known only to a few. And behind that fissure, hidden from wind and memory alike, lies a cavern lit by a glow not born of flame or star, but of living moss that clings to the walls like constellations drawn in soft green fire. Tonight, we step into that cavern. The light is dim, barely more than a murmur of color washed across the stone, but enough to reveal shelves carved directly into the cave walls. Each shelf holds tablets of ancient rock, laid out with reverence as though placed by hands that understood the weight of silence. The air is cool, thick with mineral scent, and something else, something like the stillness of a library abandoned not by haste, but by design. Whispers tell us that this place is tended by an order called the Silent Keepers, a name given to them not by themselves, for they never spoke aloud, but by travelers who glimpsed them in the shadows. They communicated through slow gestures, soft inclinations of the head, and movements so gentle that even the falling dust seemed louder. Here, deep within the earth, they guarded an archive, not of parchment or ink, but of etched stone tablets, each carved with symbols resembling interwoven vines, lines curling, branching, looping back upon themselves as though the stone held the memory of forests long turned to dust. It is in this quiet sanctuary that our story unfolds, as though the cavern itself has been waiting for a listener willing to move softly, breathe slowly, and let the world above drift away like a fading dream. As we walk deeper, the greenish glow fades softly along the walls, shifting in brightness as if exhaling. The shelves seem endless, extending far beyond the reach of sight, disappearing into chambers where the moss grows thin and only the faint memory of light survives. Some believe the Silent Keepers devoted their lives to humility before knowledge. They did not seek to master it, nor bind it to the will of kings, nor chisel it into monuments of authority. Instead, they tended wisdom as one tends seeds, allowing it to rest, to deepen, to wait patiently for its proper season. In forgotten corners of surviving lore, one phrase appears again and again. Knowledge must sleep as the earth sleeps, lest it forget how to dream. Perhaps that is why their archive lies here, beneath the world, resting in the cradle of stone. As the moss light brushes across the tablets, the symbols glimmer. Some are broad and looping, like vines caught in gentle wind. Others are sharp and spiraled, reminiscent of ferns unfurling. A few are so detailed that the lines seem too fine for any known chisel. Some say these markings were not carved by tools at all, but grown, encouraged into being by the keeper's slow rituals, shaping stone through patience the way plants shape soil over centuries. The deeper we wander, the more aware we become of subtle sounds, soft as drifting breath. A faint footstep, as though someone has just departed the chamber before we entered. A gentle rustle, like robes brushing against the cavern wall. The air shifts behind us now and then, though no wind can reach this deep. It is easy to imagine the silent keepers still here, moving through the passages, unseen but never absent. Their work was quiet, their presence softer than the glow on the floor. And yet, beneath the silence, there is a sense of deliberate attention, as if the cavern itself is observing, evaluating, wondering what we seek. In one chamber, the shelves stand closer together, their contents older. Dust lies thick in the crevices, and faintly glowing tendrils of moss crawl between the stones like veins of emerald fire. Here, tablets rest in stacked arrangements, each piece carved with spirals that seem to draw the moss light inward, and among them lies the first tablet whose symbols subtly shift. At first, it is only the light. As the moss flickers, the lines appear to change, an angled stroke becoming a curve, a loop widening before settling into its original shape. But then, watching more closely, we sense something else. The meaning itself seems to move, not the symbols, but the sense they evoke. Some say the silent keepers discovered a form of inscription that responded to the readiness of the reader, revealing different truths depending on the heart that approached it. Knowledge that would not dominate, but would wait, like a seed resting in cool soil until the season of understanding arrived. The moss dims briefly as though listening. Further in, the chambers widen into a vast hall supported by pillars of natural stone. Each pillar bears its own carvings, subtle and winding, like stories told in quiet loops rather than straight lines. The hall echoes with a low hum, the resonance of bioluminescent growth thrumming gently through the air. In the center stands a stone pedestal marked by faint star symbols. It is here that the keepers once gathered, tracing gestures in the air to converse without uttering a word. Some believe they did so to preserve the purity of knowledge, to prevent the distortion that spoken language might impose. Others believe they simply preferred the communion of silence. A traveler once wrote, in a trembling journal now preserved in a distant archive, "When they raised their hands, the air moved like slow tide. I understood their meaning without hearing them, and when I looked at the inscriptions again, they told me something new, as if awakened by my listening." Perhaps this archive collects not only words, but intentions. Deeper still, the glow begins to wane. The moss grows sparser, and the walls close in. Shadows gather in gentle pools, drifting like slow water along the floor. We notice the faintest footprints, some curved, some nearly invisible, tracing paths into darker corners. The silent keepers walk with us, though we do not see them. A distant rustle, the suggestion of fabric, a held breath that is not our own, the softest thrum of living moss shivering in response. And then we reach the most mysterious chamber. Here, the shelves are fewer. The air is heavier, fragrant with mineral stillness. Only a few tablets rest upon the central platform, and their symbols glow faintly with a light that does not belong to the moss. These inscriptions shift more distinctly, lines bending, spirals tightening, as though tasting the dim light. Some believe these are the tablets that hold the great truths, the histories of worlds forgotten, the secrets of stars, the wisdom of civilizations that chose silence over conquest. Others claim they contain warnings, knowledge too potent to meet the world unguarded. Yet, when the moss flickers again, the symbols soften, becoming gentle, almost welcoming. They reveal nothing definitive, only the invitation to look, to wonder, to listen. Perhaps some voices only echo when we are truly ready. As the journey nears its end, the light within the archive begins to dim. The moss retreats in slow waves, its glow fading like the breath of a sleeping creature. The walls, once shimmering with pale green luminescence, settle into deeper shades of shadow. The tablets grow quiet, their shifting meanings easing back into stillness. A soft hush fills the cavern, a silence so complete it feels sacred. Some believe this dimming is the keeper's way of guiding visitors out, an unspoken gesture that the time for listening has passed. Others say it is the archive itself, protecting its deeper truths, withdrawing them like seeds curling in the cold. In the fading glow, we sense presence again, a faint intake of breath, a rustle of cloth, the pressing stillness of unseen figures standing just beyond the last shimmer of light. Perhaps they are watching, perhaps they are waiting, perhaps they are simply guarding the threshold between what is known and what should stay buried in quiet earth. The shelves dissolve into darkness, the carvings blur, even the echo of our steps softens until it is no longer certain whether we move or the cavern shifts around us. And then, as the last traces of moss light vanish, we are left with only the memory of green fire, the lingering sense of wisdom sleeping in stone, and a quiet uncertainty that settles like dust. Some knowledge, it seems, rests best in shadow. Some truths reveal themselves only in half-light. And perhaps the deepest wisdom of all is this, that not every secret is meant to be spoken, and not every echo wishes to be heard. The archive falls completely dark, and somewhere in the unseen chambers beyond, the silent keepers continue their vigil, guarding the seeds of forgotten worlds, waiting for the rare souls who arrive, ready to listen. It is said that on a lonely cliff overlooking an ancient, wind-scoured coast, there rests an observatory whose stones remember more than the people who carved them. Here, where the land meets the breath of the open sea, and where the horizon glows with the pale promise of a coming sun, the ruins stand half-collapsed, half-enduring, like a dream that refuses to fully fade. In the blue hush before morning, the air carries a quiet that feels older than language. Only the whisper of distant waves and the dim pulse of the sky disturb the stillness. The observatory's circular platform lies open to the heavens, its pillars broken, its inscriptions softened by centuries of wind, yet its design remains unmistakable, a ring of stone crafted to cradle the first light of day. Some believe that this was no ordinary place of watching. Some believe that its builders, whose names vanished long before the earliest recorded dawn, shaped it to behold not only the mornings of their own age, but the rising suns of forgotten epochs and unborn centuries, a vessel for time itself. Tonight, you approach this sacred ruin just before the world brightens. The last shadows of night drift like veils around your path. At your feet lie stones etched with spirals, wings, and horizons that fold into one another, symbols of beginnings wrapped inside endings, of years turning like slow celestial wheels. As you step closer, the observatory seems to breathe, not with motion, but with presence, with memory. Beneath the silence, something stirs, not in the physical air, but deep in the realm of stories, where time moves with its own quiet will. The watchers of this observatory, it is whispered, lived lives of stillness and devotion. They kept no archives of kings, no scrolls of wars or dynasties. Their task was far more subtle, far more patient. They watched the dawn, every dawn, and believed each sunrise carried faint messages, soft traces of eras beyond their own. Old accounts described their rituals, how they would gather before the first light, seated in concentric rings like ripples around a stone, how they would breathe in unison, as though drawing time itself into their chests, how they would read the sky, not by stars alone, but by the hush that preceded them. Their wisdom, if it can be called that, was less about prophecy and more about listening to the world as it unfolded day after day, breath after breath. Some legends claim they sensed dawns from ages far removed, a sunrise golden with the dust of a great migration long past, a pale dawn echoing from a future when cities would rise in places now forgotten, a crimson glow marking the birth of an empire that had not yet been imagined. Whether any of this was true, no one can say. The watchers kept no written testimonies. Their teachings were spoken softly, shared from mentor to student, from one generation to the next, like leaves passed hand to hand in a forest clearing. And perhaps that was the point. Teachings meant to be lived more than recorded. Tonight, as you wander through the broken pillars, the world feels suspended. The moon has already slipped beyond the horizon, leaving only a faint pearly residue in the sky. The sea below murmurs against the rocks, each wave a chapter of an ancient story told too many times to ever be fully understood. You pause beside one of the larger stones. Its surface holds a shallow groove shaped like a spiral, expanding outward as though mimicking the turning of galaxies. At its center is a small indentation, a bowl-like hollow where, perhaps, the first beam of morning was meant to fall. But there is something else. As you shift your gaze, a subtle sheen touches the carved line, the faintest suggestion of movement, like light traveling along the groove before any sun has fully risen. It is as though the stone is rehearsing the dawn. It is said that at certain moments, the observatory's stones align with unseen rhythms, not the measured ticks of hours, but vast cycles, migrations of stars, breath of oceans, the hidden mathematics of tides. The watchers believed time was layered, not linear, that seasons echoed older seasons, that history, in its deepest form, was not a march forward, but a circular tide, ebbing and returning. You walk to the center of the platform where a half-collapsed ring of stones forms the observatory's heart. Some pillars lie broken like fallen guardians, others stand crooked but resolute. Through the gaps, the horizon spreads open, a soft brushstroke of blue warming to pale fire. A breeze moves through the ruin, stirring dust, passing across symbols carved into the floor. And then, almost imperceptibly, the light shifts. not brighter, but more layered, as though dawn were arriving in slow, overlapping waves. A beam touches a broken pillar and glances off a slanted face, illuminating a marking of wings folded over a horizon. Another beam brushes across the circular floor, lighting spirals that appear deeper than they truly are. And somewhere in the pattern of these glimmers, you sense an intention. The builders knew exactly where light would fall, not only now, but centuries ago, possibly centuries from now. The observatory, it seems, was not merely a place to watch time. It was a structure to reveal the breath beneath it, the rise and fall, the circling, the returning, and then comes the subtle anomaly. As the sky shifts from blue to soft rose, a second layer of light seems to shimmer beside the first, a faint echo of dawn that does not belong to the present moment, like two mornings briefly sharing the same horizon. For a breathless instant, the carvings gleam as though lit from within. The stones hum with a low, almost imperceptible resonance, and the air thickens, not with sound, but with potential, as though time were adjusting itself around you. Some whisper that this phenomenon is the observatory's memory of earlier dawns resurfacing. Others claim it is a premonition of dawns yet to come, brushing their fingertips against the present. You do not try to decipher it. You only stand in the quiet, letting the layered light move across the stones, knowing that mystery often speaks more through presence than explanation. The watchers once believed that every sunrise carried a lesson, that beginnings were not isolated moments, but reflections echoing across centuries, that the world repeats its wisdom gently, patiently, for those who watch long enough to hear it. Perhaps in this moment you understand why they stayed here, returning every day, greeting every dawn like a teacher whose voice changes, but whose message endures. The sky brightens now, shifting from rose to gold. The faint anomaly fades, leaving only the present dawn, soft and unhurried, warming the stones with gentle touch. You breathe in. The air tastes of salt, stone, and something older, the whisper of centuries turning like pages beneath a careful hand. The observatory stands silent once more. Its secrets remain unspoken, but not unfelt, and you know, without needing to be told, that some truths are not meant to be captured, only carried. Perhaps the watchers were right. Perhaps time is not a line, but a wheel, spinning gently through ages, letting dawn after dawn remind us that every beginning is a continuation, and every ending folds quietly back into beginnings. As the sun clears the horizon, the pillars glow softly, as though grateful for the touch of morning. The spirals at your feet shimmer once, briefly, then settle. You turn to leave. Behind you, the observatory watches another sunrise. Ahead of you, the day begins without urgency, and somewhere in that quiet distance between what has been and what still waits, you feel the lingering truth. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. Some light only reveals itself when the world is still enough to receive it. And some places, like this observatory of wandering dawns, were never meant to be fully understood, only remembered, only felt, only greeted softly in moments like this, when the horizon glows and time becomes a slow turning wheel. It is said that in certain hours of twilight, those thin, breath-like moments when day loosens its grip and night has yet to claim the sky, there is a place where the world grows strangely still. A hush settles over the land, not of silence alone, but of suspension, as though time itself pauses mid-step, unsure whether to continue forward or drift back into the shadows. Here, beneath the widening dusk, fragments of a kingdom lie scattered like half-remembered dreams. Walls softened by centuries of wind lean gently against the indigo air. Worn steps descend into pools of quiet dust, and afar, where cliffs dissolve into a tapestry of fading color, towers rise like distant phantoms, blurred as though seen through the shifting lens of water. The ground beneath you feels cool, untouched by the haste of passing hours. The sky, faintly lit by the last strokes of evening, resembles an ancient page washed clean of its ink. And all around, the landscape seems to breathe, slow, deep, contemplative, as if awakening from a slumber far older than memory. Some believe this is the threshold of the kingdom that slipped out of time, a place caught between what was and what still whispers on the edge of becoming. You step forward, guided by a softness in the air, by the sense that something old and longing waits just beyond the veil of dusk. B. Exploration, the deepening mystery. Whispers tell us that this kingdom did not fall to war, nor to famine, nor to the slow decay of neglect. Instead, it drifted, gently, deliberately, until it no longer answered to the hours that rule the world. Its people, it is said, were devoted to the rituals of moonlit reflection. On nights when the sky was clear and marked by the moon, they would gather in quiet courtyards to listen to the breathing of the earth. They believed time was not a ruler, but a guest, a visitor to be welcomed with stillness, nurtured with kindness, and released with gratitude at each dawn. Their scrolls, those that remain, speak of evenings spent tracing the paths of constellations across bowls of still water. They watch the sky as though reading a letter written to them by forgotten ancestors. Beneath this silent practice, they sensed a rhythm older than their world, one that pulsed like an unseen tide, moving through the chambers of their days. You wander now through one such courtyard. Broken archways frame the darkening sky. Stone benches rest beneath veils of moss, their surfaces marked by faint spirals and symbols of dust and moonlight. The place feels both abandoned and inhabited, as though memory itself has chosen to remain long after footsteps have vanished. A faint echo stirs the air, soft, uncertain, yet no voice follows. The sound seems to arrive ahead of itself, as if an echo could precede its own origin. You pause. The twilight deepens, the landscape thickening with gentle contradictions. A shadow stretches across the stones, but the object that should cast it is nowhere near where the darkness falls. A faint breeze warms your skin, though the air remains chilled with night's approach. And distant towers shimmer, wavering between presence and absence, as though undecided whether to remain in this hour or slip into another. Perhaps this is how the kingdom drifted, not in a single moment, but through quiet discrepancies that grew, layer by layer, until time loosened its hold and the kingdom simply exhaled itself into another rhythm. Beneath the silence, another whisper comes, not words, something gentler, a suggestion, an invitation. You step into a long corridor whose walls are carved with scenes of waning moons and slow-turning stars. The figures etched here move not in rigid procession, but in flowing spirals, as though dancing with the breath of the night. Their gestures seem to guide your footsteps deeper into the kingdom's memory. At the corridor's end lies a chamber open to the sky. The floor is etched with concentric rings, each growing fainter as though dissolving into the dust at the edge of vision. It is here, legends say, that the final ritual took place, the ritual by which the kingdom stepped beyond the grasp of ordinary time. Though no written account describes it, the inscriptions offer hints, symbols depicting the thinning of boundaries, curved lines folding back upon themselves, a single crescent moon carved within a spiral marked by the moon as a turning point. Scholars have puzzled over these carvings, but the truth feels less like knowledge and more like atmosphere. You sense that the ritual was not a spell, not an incantation, but a surrender, a collective longing for gentler rhythms, for days that breathe rather than march. As you walk the quiet chamber, the light flickers, not from torch or flame, but from the dusk itself, as though twilight were a living thing, adjusting its weight upon the stones. Your shadow lengthens, then shortens, then lengthens again, following some hidden measure. A soft echo arrives, though your steps trail behind, and the air feels thick with the presence of those who once stood exactly here, listening for the moment when the world's tempo softened enough to let them slip away. Perhaps they succeeded. Perhaps the kingdom's departure was not an escape, but an answering of a promise made long ago, that when time grew too heavy, too hurried, they would follow the moon's gentler rhythm into a quieter realm. You wander onward, passing through fading courtyards where pools of dusk gather like forgotten ink. Columns lean inward as if whispering secrets. Inscriptions along the stones alter subtly when viewed from different angles, like reflections shifting across water. The contradictions grow more tender now, less unsettling, more like reminders that the kingdom you walk through is both here and not here, a soft echo of itself, held in the folds of twilight. See, emotional closure, the fade into silence. As the sky darkens to deepest violet, the kingdom begins to change. Edges soften, colors fade. The stones beneath your feet feel weightless, as though drifting slightly above the earth. You pause at the remains of an ancient gate. Half of it has crumbled. The other half curves upward like the rib of a long-lost creature. Beyond it lies a stretch of open land, but even that is becoming uncertain. Shapes blur, as though the landscape is dissolving into dusk. A faint shimmer rises from the ground, not bright, not sharp, but soft as breath. It moves across the ruins, touching walls, steps, and towers with the gentlest caress. And wherever it passes, the forms lose another degree of solidity. Some worlds, it seems, do not vanish all at once. They slip away softly, the way a memory loosens its hold just before sleep. You close your eyes, listening. There is no wind, no footsteps, only a sensation like the slow turning of a page, quiet, delicate, inevitable. Perhaps the kingdom did not flee. Perhaps it simply grew tired of the weight of hours, of the steady demand of clocks and seasons. Perhaps it sought refuge where time moves as softly as moonlight across still water. When you open your eyes again, the towers in the distance are little more than silhouettes. The steps behind you have grown pale. Even the walls near your hands feel less substantial, as though woven of dusk and longing. The kingdom exhales, and with that breath, the final veil descends. Stone becomes shadow, shadow becomes mist. Mist folds gently into the waiting arms of night. In the silence that follows, you feel neither loss nor fear, only the tender awareness that you have been allowed to witness something few ever glimpse, a realm that chose gentleness over permanence and quiet over certainty. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps its truth lives only in the soft twilight between waking and sleep, where memory fades, where echoes arrive before sound, where time softens its hands and allows weary worlds to rest. You turn away as the last shapes dissolve. Ahead, the night stretches warm and deep, carrying you into its slow embrace. And behind you, somewhere just beyond the reach of the present hour, the kingdom settles into a quieter rhythm, slipping further from time's grasp, resting where the moon shines softly and where the world moves with a gentler breath. It is said that in a forgotten reach of the world, beyond the last wandering dunes, and beneath cliffs worn smooth by the patience of centuries, there runs a river unlike any other. A ribbon of water, narrow as a whispered secret, glides through the spine of a deep canyon. Under the hush of night, its surface becomes a mirror of the heavens, a drifting ribbon of stars that seems to carry the sky from one horizon to the next. Some believe the river was older than the stone that held it, older than the winds that circled the earth, older even than the dreams of humankind. This chapter begins with the sound of that water, a soft murmur, steady and cool, slipping between ancient walls the way breath slips between sleeping lips. The canyon exhales a chill that feels like memory itself, quiet, weightless, and patient. You stand at its threshold, watching the moonrise catch upon the river's surface as though thousands of tiny celestial eyes blinked awake beneath the water. Whispers tell us that this place was once revered by a people whose name has long dissolved into dust. They were a tranquil culture, more at ease with silence than with speech. They believed that dreams did not belong to individuals alone, but to the world, that each night visions rose from distant lands, carried by winds, shaped by starlight, and delivered into the waiting arms of this river. And so they built their sanctuaries not upon the cliffs, but within them, carved into the canyon walls, some high above the water, some close enough to feel its spray, were small alcoves shaped like crescent shadows. Each alcove held room for a single watcher. These watchers were not priests, nor guardians, nor interpreters. They were simply listeners. It was believed that if one sat long enough in absolute stillness, the river would choose a dream for them, a dream not born from their own heart, but from the slow and wandering mind of the world. Some nights, the dreams were said to drift across the river's surface, visible only as faint ripples of silver, curling into patterns the watchers could not fully describe. Other nights, nothing came, only the steady hum of the current, as if the world had chosen to sleep without dreaming at all. Beneath the silence of starlit cliffs, you walk deeper into the canyon now, guided by the water's gentle breath. It flows around boulders as old as forgotten empires, brushing them into smooth, soft shapes. Each step you take carries the echo of those who walked this path before you, dream seekers wrapped in woven robes, carrying only quiet hopes and warm lantern light. On one cliff face, half reclaimed by vines and fading moon-blue moss, you see ancient carvings etched with careful hands, spirals, waves, eyes half closed in contemplative rest. Some resemble constellations, though none match those known today. They seem to depict a sky that once shone differently, or perhaps a sky as seen by dreams rather than by waking eyes. It is here that legends say the canyon reveals its softest secrets. For when the full moon leans across the river, pale and unwavering, certain carvings glow with a faint, almost trembling light. Not bright, not commanding, but fragile, like an ember hidden beneath ash. Scholars who later visited this place wrote that the glow came from a mineral long extinct in other lands. But the locals whispered another story. They said the carvings held the residue of ancient dreams, pressed into the stone by centuries of listening. They said the glow was not light at all, but memory, the faint mark of thoughts that had passed through the river's long awareness. As you trace your fingertips along one such carving, a spiral turning inward, marked by the moon, you feel a hum beneath your skin, soft, uncertain, almost shy, like a story deciding whether it wishes to be told. Farther along the canyon, the river widens just enough to soften its voice. Here, the water hums with a tone so gentle it feels more like a breath than a sound. Some travelers said the river changed its tone depending on who stood beside it. Others believed the tone was constant, but could only be heard when one let go of their own thoughts long enough to perceive it. Whispers tell us that long ago, those who slept near this river had dreams filled with places they had never seen. Mountains veiled in violet mist, oceans glowing with submerged starlight, deserts where time lay folded like paper. No dream was ever repeated, and no dream was entirely their own. They were said to be fragments of elsewhere, carried across vast distances by the drifting mind of the earth. Some dreams brought comfort, fields of soft green moss where forgotten spirits wandered in peace. Others brought riddles, stairways carved into the sky, leading nowhere. And some brought silence so profound that those who woke from them carried a stillness in their chest for days, as though they had tasted the quiet heartbeat of the world. In forgotten corners of the canyon, deeper than most dared to walk, there are alcoves sealed by time. Their entrances are half buried beneath fallen stone, wrapped in roots that hold the rock like sleeping hands. Some believe these sealed chambers still hold watchers who never returned, whether lost to time or to dreams no one could ever wake from. Beneath the faint glow of the moon, the canyon seems to shift subtly around you. Shadows stretch and soften. Water sighs as if turning a page. Nothing moves, yet everything feels alive in the gentlest way. You pause at a narrow bend where the river converges into a glassy pool, still as unspoken thought. In the center rises a single stone pillar, carved long ago with lines that resemble flowing water. Some say this pillar was once the anchor of a bridge. Others say it was placed there deliberately, a marker where the river first learned to dream. If you listen closely, very closely, you may notice that the river's surface trembles, though no wind touches it. The tremble is faint, rhythmic, like the slow inhale and exhale of a sleeping being. Perhaps this is only imagination, or perhaps the legends hold a quiet truth, that the river carries not just water, but the drifting sentiments of all who ever crossed the earth. The canyon narrows once more as you continue, the stars above shrinking into thin slivers framed by sheer walls. The river seems deeper here, darker, more secretive. Its voice softens until it is almost silent. Only the occasional drip of moisture from the stone ceiling echoes through the space, like a single drop of time falling into the vastness. Some say that in this stretch of the canyon, dreams become heavier, not frightening, but weighted, like messages sent from faraway souls trying to find their way home. Others claim that the river remembers sorrow as tenderly as it remembers hope, and that both drift together in its patient waters. Finally, you reach the far end of the canyon, where the walls rise so high they nearly touch the night sky. This is where the river disappears, slipping beneath a curtain of stone into darkness that no lantern has ever fully pierced. It is said the river continues into caverns uncharted, carrying its dreams deeper into the earth, where they dissolve into silence. You cannot follow it. No one ever has. Instead, you stand at the edge, where starlight fades and shadow begins, and you listen. You listen for a final hum, a final whisper, a final breath of ancient memory. But the river offers only stillness now, a soft, sacred quiet, as though it has said all it wishes to say tonight. Perhaps the dreams drifting through its waters are not meant to be caught. Perhaps they were never meant to be understood. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. As the canyon darkens, the stars retreat behind gathering clouds. The river narrows into blackness, the carvings fade, the alcoves dissolve into shadow, and the dreams pass gently beyond reach, like distant lanterns on a night tide. And in this quiet, in this final breath of ancient stone and wandering water, you feel the faintest truth. Where memory fades, the world dreams on. It is said that in a forest so old its trees lean like weary guardians over the centuries, there lies a place where the earth takes a slow, deliberate breath, not the wind's breath, nor the sigh of shifting leaves, but something deeper, warmer, more ancient. A breath that rises from the roots themselves, as though the soil were exhaling softly after holding its stories for far too long. This chapter begins beneath a canopy woven from branches that have seen countless moons. The light at dusk filters through their tangled crowns in thin golden ribbons, fallen upon a patch of ground coated in moss the color of fading emerald. The air smells of quiet rain, of bark soaked with memory. There, half buried beneath knotted roots, lies the stone lip of a hidden chamber. At first glance, it seems no more than a hollow where stones have collapsed into themselves. But when the last of the sunlight touches it, a faint warmth escapes, drifting upward like a secret. Some believe this warmth is the breath of the world, the earth whispering to any who would listen. Others say it is merely the heat of minerals long held underground. Yet even skeptics pause when they feel it, for it carries a strange, steady rhythm, as if echoing a heartbeat older than anything living upon the surface. You kneel before the opening, brushing away soft moss. The forest hushes around you. Even the insects fade into silence, as though honoring a sacred space. With slow steps, you descend into the dimness below, guided by the lingering warmth. The chamber opens gently, like a cupped hand carved into the earth. The walls glow with the faintest traces of amber light, not from torches or flame, but from the stone itself. It is said that the minerals here hold memory like a vessel, storing echoes of ancient seasons, ancient storms, ancient migrations of beasts, long vanished. Those who once visited this place believed the world had witnessed everything that ever lived upon it, and that, in certain sanctuaries, it remembered. As your eyes adjust, you begin to see shapes along the curved walls, not carvings made by tools, not etched lines of human craftsmanship, but soft impressions molded over ages by the shifting of the earth. Scenes formed not with intention, but with patience. Reliefs shaped by pressure, heat, and time. Like clay pressed gently by unseen hands. Some depict spirals, like storms turning slowly across a forgotten sky. Others resemble long migrations, lines of shapes drifting from one wall to another, blurred yet purposeful, as if the stone recalled footsteps from eras before written thought. There are oceanic waves cresting in frozen motion, silhouettes of trees long extinct, the faint mark of some star-shaped symbol as though the heavens themselves once touched the earth here. Whispers tell us that a quiet people once dwelled in this forest. They lived simply, without written language, trusting the rhythms of the world to guide them. They believed the earth was alive in ways most could not understand, that beneath the silence of soil there pulsed a slow awareness, gathering memories as gently as leaves gather dew. To them, this chamber was not a tomb or shrine, but a place where the world spoke in its own patient way. These people called themselves listeners. They brought no offerings, no prayers, only stillness. They would sit cross-legged upon the chamber floor, letting their breath grow soft, their hearts unhurried, their minds open like unfurled petals. In such silence, they felt vibrations rise from the ground, subtle tremors, nearly imperceptible but filled with meaning. Tonight, as you stand within the chamber, you feel it too. A faint vibration hums through the soles of your feet, traveling upward in slow waves. It is not language, not sound, more like an impression, a memory, as though the earth is sharing a sensation rather than a story. You sense warmth, the warmth of a season long past, when great herds walked through the forest above. You sense the heaviness of rain that once fell for unbroken days, turning the soil into a mirror of the sky. You sense the shift of roots creeping over centuries, searching for water hidden deep below. The impressions come without urgency, unfolding with the gentle pace of geological time. Some believe these vibrations are remnants of seismic movements. Others insist they are dreams of the earth made tangible. But the listeners claimed something deeper, that the world remembers not as a record, but as a presence, a lingering touch left by everything that ever brushed against it. On the far wall of the chamber, where the amber glow dims into ancient shadows, you notice something that stirs quiet wonder. Among the reliefs worn into the stone over millennia, there are marks that appear newer, edges crisp, shapes sharper, as though formed far more recently. One pattern resembles the branching of trees, but in a layout that mirrors the modern forest above. Another shape, faint yet unmistakably recent, looks like the imprint of a new stream carved by last year's storms. These fresh marks shimmer softly, as if still settling into the memory of the chamber. And you realize the earth is still recording, still remembering. The listeners once spoke of this phenomenon with hushed reverence. They called it the waking memory. To them, the chamber was not only a repository of ancient stories, but a living archive, responding to the world even now. They believed that when great changes unfolded, when skies shifted, when rivers altered course, when forests grew or retreated, the earth pressed these moments into its hidden sanctuaries, not as warnings or prophecies, but as gentle acknowledgments of time's quiet passage. In forgotten corners of this chamber, where dust gathers in thin, soft layers, you imagine those listeners sitting for hours, tracing the warm stone with their fingertips. Some said that they could feel echoes of emotion within the vibrations, joy from long summers of abundance, sorrow from seasons of fire or frost, serenity from years when nothing extraordinary occurred at all. Whether this was truth or belief, no one can say. But the stillness here feels full, as though holding centuries of unspoken memory. You step deeper into the chamber, where the warmth breathes gently from hidden cracks in the floor. The air is dense, comforting, with the faint scent of mineral dust and moss carried in from above. Here, the glow dims, giving way to deeper shadow. Yet even the darkness feels alive, alive with the slow heartbeat of the world. At the chamber's center lies a shallow stone basin, filled not with water, but with fine grains of earth. Some say that during certain seasons, the grains shift, forming small patterns overnight, spirals, waves, star-marked symbols, as though the chamber speaks softly to itself in a language too slow for human time. You stand before the basin, and for a moment, the vibrations deepen. Not loud, not urgent, simply fuller, like a chord resonating faintly after being plucked. Perhaps this is the memory of storms. Perhaps it is something else. Perhaps the earth is acknowledging your presence, adding this moment, this breath, this stillness to its endless collection. Beneath the silence, you feel an invitation, not to stay forever, but to understand, to recognize that beneath your feet lies an ancient awareness, patient and enduring. As you turn to leave, the chamber exhales once more, a warm, gentle breath against your skin, fainter now, softer, as though growing tired, or perhaps simply retreating back into its quiet rhythm. Your ascent toward the forest is slow. Roots curl around the stone steps like sleeping serpents. Faint shafts of dusk light filter downward as you climb, illuminating motes of dust that drift like wandering spirits. When you emerge into the open air, the canopy greets you with a soft rustle. The last light of evening stretches across the forest floor in long amber beams. The air feels cooler now, touched by the ordinary winds of the surface world. But you carry with you the warmth of the chamber, lingering on your skin like a whispered memory. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps the earth shares only as much as it chooses, just enough to remind us that beneath every stone, every root, every patch of quiet moss, there lies a history deeper than language. As night gathers, you walk slowly from the clearing, and though you cannot hear the chamber's breath anymore, you sense it nonetheless. A gentle presence beneath the soil, a memory waiting in darkness, a quiet truth beneath your every step. Where memory fades, the world remains awake.